Hello to everyone. Welcome to this new edition of Globedades. This is a podcast of the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac, Mexico University. My name is Arturo Flores, and today I have the pleasure to have as a guest Vasillis Cos- Constantopolous. Did I say that
Yeah,
right?
no, perfect.
Vasillis
Yes.
Tikanis?
Folicala. I'm
Polikala.
getting more and more impressed, Arturo.
Well, great to have you today, Vasillis, as our guest. Vasillis, I'm going to introduce you first. Well, he's a vice president and director at the business unit in high tech at Mphasis, which is a high tech company. You will explain it in a second.
Mhm.
And well, he's in charge of the direction of high tech in this enterprise. He has got a 20-year experience leading teams in strategic issues, and I'm very impressed with your CV, Vasilis. I must say it.
Thank you.
You have worked for Cisco, Oracle, Motorola as well, and you also have a PhD and an MBA. So that it's great. It's great to have you with us today, Vasilis. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for
Ex-
hosting me.
Excellent. And well, we are going to talk today about one of the most amazing, fantastic topics, which well, personally, I've been following since the last couple of years, and which has to do with artificial intelligence. And I think over the last months, we have started to hear a lot about artificial intelligence and how it works, and especially how it has been, well, it's more broadly used in many fields. And
Mhm.
but well, my first question will be, what is artificial intelligence and how does it work? Just if you could explain that to our the audience that we have here at Globedades, just to know, like, from an expert like you, a more like simple definition of what is artificial intelligence and how it works.
So I'd say that obviously, yes, very hot topic, and different people can have all kinds of different definitions. But if I wanted to keep this a little bit simple, I would say that our artificial intelligence would be when we have computers and machines behave in ways that we expect from humans and that we didn't necessarily expect from machines. And indeed, there's been a very significant um, leap forward over the last year, I would say, in terms of what we can see artificial intelligence do. And what's fascinating is also that the pace of progress is seems to be accelerating. And it's we'll talk about some of the examples and some of the use cases, I guess, in a moment. But the second question that you asked me was how does it work? And that's a very interesting thing. That the way this let me take like a small step back. Until not that long ago, a lot of this intelligence, this artificial intelligence, was basically humans coding rules and then having a machine follow some very specific rules. If this happens, then do this. If that happens, then do that. Right. Uh, but more and more, we see systems that are a little bit self-learning. So what you do is you expose them to situations, and then they learn a little bit empirically, just like we as humans learn when we're children. And if you um, so if you think about it, like an example is the following: that you can say that you've seen those tests online where they say, okay, I'm not a machine, where they tell you, hey, click on all the pictures that show a car, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So there's two ways you can teach an engine. Like, one, the traditional way was saying, well, if there's a horizontal line like this and a vertical line like this, and this exact shape, now this is a car, and so that's how you hard code it. The other way is you take 1,000 pictures, you point all of those cars in those 1,000 pictures, and you let the machine figure out what a car looks like based on the selections you have made. So it's a bit less prescriptive, but if you think about it, this is also the natural way in which we humans learn. As a child, people were pointing, hey, here's a car, here's a car, here's a car. So you saw some dozens or hundreds of examples of cars, and by that point, you knew you could identify a car without somebody specifically telling you these are the exact dimensions that it needs to conform to, right? And that's what is making, I think, this new wave of AI very, very powerful and a lot more natural in their feel with humans, and also a little bit scary, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, and because I think uh, since I think that after the pandemic, we started to realize that, well, during the pandemic, I think technology played a crucial role for everyone in the
Mhm.
sense that it was the way we started to communicate using, tools that we were not maybe used to using. Like, for
Mhm.
example, this interview that we're having now
Right.
is using some kind of technology, which, in before the pandemic, maybe we wouldn't have been used to be like in this interview like
Mhm.
this. Um, but my question is, whether do you think that the role of technology is like more significant now, and which are some of these implications? Because my concern is that many people see technology as an end, not as a means, and this could be like something that could affect all the activities that we do as humans, right?
Right.
Because if we see technology as the end, then this means that we don't see it anymore as a tool. But and talking to experts like you makes like it can widen our perspective very much. So this is what I would like to ask you: whether you see technology as this end or as a tool, a means.
Look, I definitely see it as a tool, and I know what you're talking about. I have heard different points of view on this, but I strongly feel that it is a powerful tool. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you, even before AI itself, just with technology in general, um, remember a few years ago, a partner at a large talent search firm asked me my point of view on them having a digital practice, and specifically people digital. And I said, look, I don't believe in this. I believe that the functions remain. We have our functional jobs, and digital is something that's pervasive everywhere, because now you use technology in any field, in every field. So it's just going to be more of a separation of who are the functional experts who are digitally literate
Mhm.
and who are not. And Actually, let's take today as an example. I think you bring out an excellent point. If you right now are a podcast host, right? That's your functional role.
Mhm.
But through the use of technology, you are able, by augment, I mean, obviously in the podcast by definition you have some technology, right, since you're streaming, um, but by doing this session like this remotely rather than having me in a studio, you're able to broaden the reach of
Mhm.
who you could talk to and the content that you can bring to your audience, compared to just being restricted by whoever you can physically bring inside the studio,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So it becomes a tool.
Hmm.
And what I do believe is that there's going to be clear demarcation between those who are able to fully utilize the tools and have better better productivity, better quality outputs, and so forth, and those who won't be able to utilize the tools as well and will be perhaps lagging behind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you defined perfectly what some experts have identified as the digital divide, and
Right.
how some people, it's not only about having access, but also about knowing how to use the tools and how to like maximize the use of technology in many ways. And
And
yeah.
And on this, I can tell you something very interesting, because we've been looking at AI tools to help us with coding, and they can automate code and so forth in our industry. And just last week, I was having a review of some pilots that we did and what conclusions we're drawing. And the key conclusion, and this was very interesting, thing that these AI tools made a huge difference for some of our senior coders, some of the very experienced folks, and a lot less impact on some of the junior people. And why was that? And that's because the tools could automate certain things that are a bit more repetitive or a little bit more standard. But you still need the inspiration. You still need to make some of the key, more strategic decisions that the senior people, the senior coders, were able to make, and then have the tool automate some things for them. Whereas the more junior guys, they're still trying to figure out what exactly needs to be done and how. And so they could not give the same direction to the tool.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't benefit in the same way. Whereas before before running the pilot, my thinking was that maybe this would benefit the junior guys because uh, they don't uh, they don't need to know all of the expressions well, or they might be more prone to some um, simple mistakes when coding that the tool could fix for them, etc. But the reality was quite different once we ran the pilot.
Yeah. Just a reminder for the people who are watching and listening to us. Today we have Dr. Vasillis Constantopolous as our guest. This is Globedades, a podcast of the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac, Mexico University. And Vasillis, lately we have heard, or I started to hear this term, which is generative artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a bit more about this concept, what it represents, or how it works?
Yes, so this is generative AI, also some of the um, large language AI, is this current new wave where basically by exposing, remember how I mentioned earlier, the showing hundreds of pictures of the cars, etc. So you expose the AI to thousands of pages of text, millions of pages. You take all the manuals for different devices, or you can take the all the laws,
Hmm.
all the legislation in a country or in a sector or what have you, right? So some large um, and then this is an engine that can generate new text based on prompts received, and it feels like a natural conversation. As I said, you know, we've been obviously tinkering with automation in AI for many years, but up until now, it was very much driven as a decision tree. If this happens, then you do that. if then this other thing happens, then this is your response, or this is how you combine things. In this instance, the engine is really able to generate new text, and it can respond in the same way, in very similar way to which a human might. And matter of fact, if you try some of those conversations with, for example, ChatGPT is one such instance, which is publicly available and so forth. It is very impressive how natural this can feel, and that if you don't know that this is a machine, oftentimes you could be fooled for a while and think that you're having a conversation with some other human, except that it's faster at responding. And to illustrate, the some of this generative nature, you can even have qualifiers saying, "Hey, I would like you to generate this text as if you were a 10-year-old kid." And in that instance, I understand, these kind of engines can understand the context and scale down the vocabulary or the expressions used and have something that's simpler, like a 10-year-old kid might. And this has been very powerful in a number of applications, ranging from some of those chatbots that you see popping up more and more on websites, right?
Yeah.
How can I help you, etc. It's sometimes hard to tell whether it's a chatbot or really it's an agent behind, right, responding, right? I would, but it can also be used as quick references and augmentation. So if I take the example that I just mentioned of you have a chat with somebody, or even you call into a call center, you could have this engine respond to you, or if you're also talking to a human agent, you could have this engine be in front of the screen for the agent, and the agent types questions and get some responses and can get the references so that they can give the accurate reply back to the person on the phone. And particularly in instances where you need to search many documents, get some context, etc., this can really accelerate the job for those people in terms of in terms of serving the end clients.
Yeah, and up to what extent do you think that we should be worried about being replaced by AI in many ways? I ask you this because
I
I
understand.
I give a lecture here which is called Smart Cities, and within the lecture we have a look at how different technologies and things are happening. And one of the things that we have been discussing has to do with the fact that there is a threat to human activities with artificial intelligence, right? So, how do you think that, or rather, which will be like the limit? Like having, because now you have this, you know, our AI helps in many ways and is quicker and it can be very efficient. But which is like the limit for human intervention, or can we set a limit in this regard?
This is the $1 million question,
Okay.
$1 billion question, even. And,
Trillion.
yes, it's. I have. I was in a presentation a few months ago where we're discussing this, and also the first question from the audience was, "How far are we from Skynet?" Referring to the Terminator series.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the other question that's often heard. And I'm not sure I know the answer to that. quite frankly. And I'll tell you in a minute why I don't think I know the answer to it. But when it comes to the threat of replacement, listen, this is something that we have seen with every technological revolution, right? And what we've seen historically is that yes, there's some jobs that disappear, but other new jobs are created. And a simple example now is to say, well, look, there's roles that are popping up that are prompt engineers, meaning people who phrase the right type of prompt to generate the right response back from the AI, etc. So basically using the tools to get to specific outputs. I think that eventually that will be the case too, that some jobs will evolve, some jobs may go away, and the bar generally gets raised, right? Like, we also see a lot of automation in manufacturing, right? But we still function in environments where we have very good rates of labor occupation across the world. We don't see 50% unemployment across, right? So it is a natural evolution. Now, I don't think I would be able to tell you the limit, simply because a lot of things have been accelerating. And if you think back, for those who are around, but also look at history, say 20 years ago. And 20 years ago is really not that long ago in the scale of humanity, right? But so you didn't have smartphones with apps and all of those things. What we're doing here today in terms of this conversation would be inconceivable.
Possible, yeah.
20 years ago, right? And so that's not that long. And try to remember a little bit my thinking, back then. I don't think I could have imagined what is happening today. And so by the same token, I don't believe that I'm capable of fully imagining and grasping what will be available 20 years from now or beyond. And so the limit is hard to define. But one thing that I can tell you that I've been saying is that what I call the half-life of skills has been diminishing over time. And so what I mean by this is the following. It used to be that people would start working, they were doing a certain job, and so then their entire career they would do that one thing, and that skill was sufficient to take them from the beginning of their career to their retirement, and so things went. Nowadays, with the evolution of a lot of things, you need to adapt, and so basically you end up having multiple mini careers within the space of a career.
Okay.
People when they retire, they no longer do exactly what they started doing when they started working. And so that's why I call the half-life of skill, that how long a skill stays relevant is diminishing. And there are some industries where that is very obvious. And so if I take computer programming, just the computer languages are evolving. None of those that I learned in college are used nowadays, for example. But even in domains such as agriculture, you're getting so much evolution in terms of development of sensors, use of AI, optimization of crops, optimization of water. So across all facets of employment, you see that pattern. So the advice that I generally give is don't don't stress too much about predicting what will be available in 10 years or whatever, but think more about how you prepare yourself to learn and to adapt and to evolve and to just embrace some of this novelty and see how it can help you in your next mini career as you're evolving.
Yeah, I think you are very right in that respect, because I think all the fields can benefit,
Yes.
and it's like a technology has become a need in a way, and is transversal, so it covers almost every aspect of our lives today. Just a reminder for those people who are listening, watching us. Today we have as our guest Dr. Vasillis Constantopolous, um, and we are talking about artificial intelligence. And this is Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. And just to see what's your perception about which could be, I mean, we were talking about that we require technology in every field. Uh, but which fields do you think are prioritary? Like, um, because I've been seeing some amazing stuff which is done in medicine, for example, or you were mentioning agriculture as well.
Mhm.
We have science. We have, in your view, which would be like industries or fields that we should prioritize the use of, you know, technology, or in this case, artificial intelligence.
So I think that what you will see is pilots being run in every industry and so forth. But I'd say if we're thinking about prioritization, um, there's two dimensions to consider. One is what is the overall potential impact, and so obviously, if like it's pretty obvious that hey, if we can make some progress in medicine and healthcare, then that's huge. If you can use AI to more accurately interpret imaging and catch things like cancer early on, based on data available, then that would be invaluable, right? So you have the impact aspect. The but the second dimension to consider is also the risk, and particularly the risk of some mistake. I mean, right now these are still new technologies. There's well-documented phenomenon of hallucination, where the AI may very confidently make statements that are absolutely incorrect and invented, and we're not necessarily sure where it's coming from, right?
Mm.
So being able to go back to the source of the information is very important. Um, and so that's one thing that needs to be taken into consideration, and how you put the appropriate safeguards. As a matter of fact, I do believe that in this space, an element that will be almost as important as technology is the legal framework, and how legislation adapts and takes AI into account. And of course, in any such conversation, you always have the uh, ethical angle, the ethics angle that comes into play of how do you make the right judgment about what you expose, what you don't expose, and so forth, which of course feeds into the legalities as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that there's definitely, I mean, healthcare is an obvious area where if we can get it right, there can be a lot of impact, particularly as technologies and evolution of technologies allow you to democratize some aspects, because certain let's take the example I picked earlier, being able to screen cancer based on imaging data and getting an accurate prediction. Right now, you may have some top doctors who are able to detect some things, etc., but obviously they can only look after a certain volume of information, and therefore you have a certain set of patients who will be able to have an earlier detection compared to others just because of access, right? If we're able to augment such people with AI tools, in terms of the AI doing some pre-selection, saying, hey, instead of looking at these 100 pictures, these are the 10 that you really should look into and confirm whether the interpretation is correct or not, then you're able to have the same quality diagnostic to 10 times more people, because AI is augmenting those experts, right? And that has huge impact, right? You can have that multiplier effect. Other areas I mentioned are agriculture. I think just in terms of some optimization and food production, distribution. I mean, in certain parts of the world, it's easy to forget that nutrition is not a given everywhere in our world, but I think that can have a large impact, and would be a good area to showcase. But look, it goes across and up to and including public sector, and helping constituents. If you can make some things available and automate, and also do some things remotely, it can have huge impact in a country if you save people from hours and hours of waiting in a line at some public administration, or having to physically go there, missing time from work, missing time from their families, and so forth. There's something to be said about the overall the mental well-being, in addition to some of the more tangible physical things. So I think really this is a space where we're only limited by our own creativity and imagination of how we could use the tools. I think gradually, as people try things, pilot things, we're going to get some great use cases that will be hopefully replicated across industries and across sectors.
Great, Vasillis. I think your views have really increased our knowledge in artificial intelligence. And just to wrap up our podcast, I would like to ask you for a final message from you to those people who are afraid of artificial intelligence or technology in itself. Could you tell them something? Because I think people like you are, in a way, translators, because you are in that field, and you are you have a very vast expertise, and you can bring your perspective to the people who are we are outside of that world. So just a last comment on this respect.
Well, I'd say that, first of all, it's natural, it's normal to be apprehensive about these developments. It's human nature to be a little bit worried about change, and in this instance, it is quite material. And I'll acknowledge that myself, when I first experienced some of this, I was floored. I was equally excited and scared, for very much the same reasons. But it is here, and it is here to stay. So given that it is inevitable, the best thing you can do really is embrace it and try to get a little bit of exposure on it. As I said, there's some free tools that are available online that are, or even phone apps that are pretty easy to use, and you can familiarize yourself with this. And in my experience, as people familiarize themselves with something, well, they start being a little bit less scared of it. They understand it better, and they start seeing ways in which it could potentially help them. And it, as I said, it will be here. You, for better or worse, you don't have any control on what other people are going to do with this and how it's going to be used and developed. But you do have a lot of control on how you let this affect you, and how you turn this into an advantage for you rather than something to be scared of.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your time. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope it's not the last time we have you as a guest here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be back. And Arturo, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you. This was Dr. Vasillis Constantopolous, and this was Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac, Mexico University. Thank you all for watching and listening, and see you next time. Bye.